안녕하십니까. 오늘은 또 혼자 이렇게 인사드리게 됐습니다. 저번 플리마켓 전반전 셀러로 참여하셨던 지터버거님이 나이젤 카본 인터뷰 행사가 있는데 혹시 같이 가시겠냐 해가지고 지터버거님과 같이 참여하게 됐고요. 모드맨에서 열리는 행사 갔다 왔습니다. 지금은 행사 끝나고 소감을 뭐 설명하면서 그럴 건데
So pleased to be here in Seoul.
제가 일단 저희 준비한 인터뷰 질문들이 있는데 한글로 먼저 한번 설명드리고 그 다음에 영어로 적은 다음에 답변해주시면 제가 다시 통역해서 한글로 해드릴 건데 제가 전문 통역은 아니셔서 조금 어색한 부분이 있어도 첫 번째 질문은 이번에 이제 나이젤 카본 책에 대한 간략한 소개인데요. So, could you give us a brief introduction about the book, Vintage Nigeria?
I think what's a little bit special about the book is that it's got a Ventile cover, and the Ventile is what we make the original Everest Parker. So the down Parker that we make in orange and yellow and black and navy. We first did this in 2003, so you know it's nearly 22 years since we did the Everest Parker, and that fabric is this fabric. Okay.
Give him a chance to talk. Yeah.
You have a responsible back.
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah.
엔타일이라는 원단이
Okay, so
영국에 되게
that's the
유명한
one there.
원단이거든요.
Yeah.
거기에서 2003년부터 계속 에버레스트 파크를 만든 원단 계속 사용하는데 그 원단으로 똑같이 책을 쓰고
Okay, so yeah. Okay, so what we did with the book is we decided to make it quite visual. So it's got some interesting reading in it. So you know it starts from the 1960s. I mean, basically, I'm 75 years of age now, and I started the Cape-Horn business really at Fashion College I started in 1967, can you believe? And I was at Fashion College in Newcastle from 67 to 1970, and then I decided to start a fashion business.
67년부터 다 알아들으셨죠? 67년부터 브랜드를 시작하셨고 지금 이제 75세가 되셨는데 그때부터 한 것들을 쭉 이제 연도별로 이제 책에다가 많이 집어넣으려고 하셨고 특히 이제 비주얼적인 부분을 많이 이렇게 포커싱하는 데 집중하셨다고. 그리고
Is it we're going to ask some questions? Yeah, okay.
And the second question. 두 번째는 이제 이번에 책에서 소개하는 아이템 중에 제일 아끼는 거 3개를 뽑아달라고 했어요. So, out of all these items featured in your book, can you say especially like 3 items particularly special for you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's quite a hard question picking the 3 special ones because I have, you know, probably between 3,500 and 5,000 pieces. So every time I find something really unique, you know, and I vintage shop a lot. So when I find something unique, I say that's my favourite piece. So it's hard to say really what my most favourite piece is. But in this book, we've only featured about 350 pieces. And obviously I have somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000. And I was at Fashion College in the 60s, so I got interested in vintage in the 60s. And I actually started collecting vintage in 1978. And so I've been collecting vintage from 78 to 2004, quite a lot of years. And I travelled the world, but always on work. I didn't travel especially to collect vintage. I've travelled around the world for work. Like obviously while I'm in Korea, I'll be looking at some vintage stores hopefully. So wherever I go, I do vintage shopping.
세 개를 뽑기가 사실은 어렵다고 하시는 게 어디 가서 어쨌든 발견 이게 최고야 항상 가서 뭐 새로운 거 발견 이게 최고야 이렇게 생각하신다고 하시고 세 개는 그래서 뭐 세 개만이 아니고 보통 4천, 5천 개를 여태까지 그 60몇 년부터 2000 몇 년까지 계속 해오셨는데 그 중에 350개가 들어가 있다고 하니까 그거 나중에 재밌게 보시는 것도 좋을 것 같고요. 그리고 여행을 좀 많이 다니시는 편인데 꼭 빈티지로만 다니는 것도 아니고 꼭 물건을 사러만 다니는 것도 아니고 여러 가지 목적으로 다니는데 이번에 한국에 와서도 반드시 또 빈티지 헌팅을 하시겠다라고 얘기하시고요. 그리고 세 번째는 이번에 이제 뭐 책에 있는 걸 수도 있고 아닐 수도 있는데 수집품 중에 가장 구하기 어려웠던 스페셜한 게 있는지 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. So, which was the hardest to find out of the vintage collectors?
Let me think about
Very
that.
special.
What was the hardest? Yeah, it's a good question. I think that maybe this one was very difficult to find. This one here. Yeah, this is really special. It's a jacket from Second World War, 1939. It is a fantastic garment. To be honest, I love this garment. Can you believe it's likely it's made in Ventile. We call it an Air Ministry experimental jacket, which is the actual label inside the jacket. So this jacket would have been a trial RAF jacket. So in effect, the Royal Air Force around 1937 to 39, before the war, when the war started, World War started in 39, but in 37 they would be experimenting with clothing. And this is actually an experimental jacket that was never properly produced. Maybe there was only 10 or 12 made. So this one, believe it or not, is probably one of the rarest ones I've got because it's really special. You can see it's falling apart. Yeah. So it's called the Air Ministry experimental jacket. I think it's made out of Ventile. It's a beautiful garment. And I have actually reduced that into a K-born piece. We have actually made this in Ventile. Actually, where is Satosh? Can't see it. Is it?
Somewhere behind.
Yeah. Oh, the thing is, that experimental parka, we made some. We made it in about 2016. I just wondered, did we ever have it in the store in Japan? Can you remember? Anyway, it's a great jacket, and we made very few of it.
이게 39년도 그러니까 2차 세계대전 모델일 때 에어 미니스터리 익스페리멘탈 자켓이라고 하고 아까 말씀드렸던 벤타이라는 것들을 이어서 뭐 지금까지도 이제 약간 거의 삭기는 했는데 상대가 몇 가지 이렇게 남아 있다고 하고 이게 빈티지 좋아하시는 분들은 아시겠지만 현행으로도 이렇게 리프로덕션이 많이 되는 편인데 정말 잘 안 됐대요 소개가. 그래서 더 레어하고 자기가 좀 애착을 가지고 있는 거라고 하시고 그리고 지금 정확히 기억이 안 나서 이제 다른 분을 찾으셨는데 2016년 아마 그 정도로 기억을 하신다고 그때 내절 번역한다 안에서도 한번 리프로덕션을 한 적이 있다고 하십니다. 네, 다음 질문은 이 책을 혹시 오늘 이제 구입하신 분들한테 어떤 메시지를 전달하고 싶으신 게 있는지 좀 물어봤습니다. So that's good.
Yeah, just one thing I forgot to add is that this was actually donated to me by a very old gentleman who was in the RAF before he died, and this is only 6. There was only 6 of these made, so I've got one of 6. Sorry, next one. Yeah.
딱 6개 만든 건데 그 중에 하나를 이제 지금 돌아가신 어느 분한테 기부 증여로 받으셨다고 합니다. So, what message do you expect readers to take from this book? Any special message you want to deliver?
Well, that's a good question. For me, as being a designer and been a designer since 1967, I would say my message would be, you know, to always try and experiment, always dig deep, you know, look for things that you really like, things that really interest you, things that work, things that are functional, things that are great quality, you know, like a riding mount, you know, you get a proper riding mount, it's always beautifully made. I think it's just good to really dig deep. Look, I love digging deep for vintage, finding rare things. And I tend to be a bit like that with life, with everything else.
책에 뭐 실험적인 것들, 어떤 그런 것들도 있을 거고 아름다운 것들 혹은 뭐 기능적으로 여러 가지 되게 재미있고 흥미로운 좋은 것들에 대한 얘기들이 많이 녹아 들어가 있으니까 한번 좀 재미있게 읽어달라고 하시고요. 다음 질문은 이렇게 오랫동안 50년이 넘게 60년이 넘게 빈티지랑 밀리터리 씬을 어떻게 계속 사랑할 수 있게 이 원동력이 어디에서 오고 있는지 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. What keeps your passion for vintage and military fashion alive for so long?
Yeah, well, it's good. It's easy for me because I travel a lot. So obviously, when I travel, the priority is to find the best vintage store in that city. You know, so obviously, if I get a little bit of time in the next 2 days, I'll be looking for a good vintage store in Seoul, and this is how I am everywhere I go. I mean, obviously, when I go to Tokyo, it's like suicide. There's so much stuff, you know, and it's really hard for me because I have to control myself in the spending because it's very easy to spend 10,000 US on vintage without even trying, you know. I don't know if you guys are aware that last Sunday we had Inspiration and there was vintage pieces there, $30,000, you know, ridiculous prices. I've never seen prices like it. But, you know, it was great to see some really, really rare vintage pieces. It's a good show to visit, the Inspiration show in Tokyo. If you got anybody here loving vintage, it's definitely a show to go to.
일단 초반에 얘기하신 거는 여행을 워낙 좋아하시니까 어디를 가든지 그 도시 혹은 그 나라에 있는 가장 좋은 빈티지 샵들을 여행하려고 하신다고 하시고 한국에서도 이제 남은 2일 동안 또 베스트 빈티지 샵들을 계속 헌팅을 하실 거고 특히 도쿄에 가면 이게 이제 좀 의역으로 할게요. 저도 많이 옷 좋아하고 많이 여행 다니는 사람이니까 사람들이 잘 이해 못할 수도 있는데 가면은 지금 얘기하신 게 뭐 $10,000짜리, 그러니까 1,300, 1,400만 원짜리, 최근에 보신 거는 300만 원, 3,000만 원짜리들도 있는데 그런 것들도 입어보지 않고도 나는 얼마든지 살 수 있고 너무 이런 거 좋아하기 때문에 지금까지도 계속 이렇게 좋아하고 하고 계신다라고 보시면 될 것 같습니다. 그리고 이거는 조금 재미있을 것 같아요. 옷 입을 때 특별히 신경 쓰는 어떤 카테고리 같은 게 있는지 포인트 아이템 같은 게 있는지 스타일링도 잘 하시는 거예요. So what would be the last categories or pieces to complete your personal style at last?
So,
To finalize your style, is there any specific item or categories that you want to express?
in the way that I dress.
Exactly.
Yeah, right, okay. Well, for me, it's about having stable items, you know. Obviously, I think that the beanie is very key accessory. I think everybody knows me for the beanie. I think also for the cargo pant, the military cargo pant, I think that's typical Nigel Caborn. I think that, you know, obviously my outerwear is key, so, you know, the Everest Parker or, you know, the cold weather Parker, all the beautiful pieces of outerwear which I love and design and wear is key. I think you always need a good hat, you need a good pair of shoes. You always need a great pair of shoes. If you don't have good shoes, the outfit looks terrible. So you've got to have good shoes, you've got to have a good hat, you need a good jacket, and you need your cargo pants. Perfect outfit. Yeah.
다 중요하더라고요.
Sorry about that.
네, 뭐 항상 저 되게 자주 뵀었는데 항상 머리 모자에 이것뿐만이 아니라 그 메카닉 캡이라고 있어요. 아까 쓰신 분을 봤는데 이렇게 돼 있는 그런 거라든지 지금 카본 팬츠도 얘기하셨고 자켓도 이제 나이젤 카본의 이제 상징적인 자켓들이 몇 개, 에버레스트 파카도 있고 뭐 카메라맨 자켓도 있고 이런 것들 그리고 마지막에 신발 포인트로 되게 중요하고 결국엔 다 시켜요. 그리고 다음이 패션 외에 혹시 좋아하시는 관심 가지고 있는 다른 부분들 좀 여쭤볼게요. Is there any cultural interest you like outside of fashion?
Cultural interest.
Like any different category that you especially like
Oh
out of
yeah,
fashion?
I mean I love soccer.
Oh, okay.
You know,
For sure.
so football is very important to me. Always has been. I used to be a goalkeeper and wanted to be a professional goalkeeper. So obviously, I love travel. You know, I live to travel really. So and I love meeting people. So to me, it's a huge pleasure to meet all you guys today. I mean, and Sam, my partner here, Sam started the Nigel Caborn business in the Far East. He introduced me to so many people in Japan, and I think that people to me are everything. So it's great to meet other cultures. Being an English guy, meeting all you people from Seoul. It's amazing to go to Hong Kong, meet all the Hong Kong people. I love the people in Japan, you know, it's great. I love travelling and, you know, this is the best way to meet people and broaden your brain, okay?
그래서 뭐 이제 질문에 대한 답변은 축구이셨던 것 같고 이제 원래도 골키퍼 포지션이셨고 프로페셔널한 골키퍼 되고 싶다고 하셨습니다. 근데 이제 그 뒤에 계속 더하신 게 결국은 여행을 얘기하신 것 같아요. 이제 문화라고 보기에는 좀 어려운데 이런 걸 좋아하고 저기 지금 계시는 쌤이라는 비즈니스 파트너분하고도 일본에서부터 시작해서 이런 걸 빌드업을 했기 때문에 많은 사람들을 만날 수 있었고 또 여기 서울에 와서도 많은 분들을 만나고 그런 게 너무 좋다고 하시는 것 같습니다. 그리고 이번 시즌이니까 아마 이사 FW 얘기하시는 것 같은데 이번 시즌에 혹시 특히 뭐 좋아하거나 소개하고 싶은 아이템이 브랜드데이 있는지 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. So I think this question is actually about fall winter 24.
Oh,
Your
right,
collection.
okay.
Is there any specific item that you want to introduce or want to?
Well, the good news is for Winter 24, we are introducing new Everest Parker. We started off doing the Everest Parker in 2003. We have actually brought out a new one. It's got some of the old features, especially features that the Japanese love. It's got the new big slide button, the button and tape button. We sort of brought, you know, from 1984 to 1984 detail, and we're using it on the new Everest Parker, which I think is a really nice detail. And yeah, I mean, I have so many classic details that I've used over the years. I'm trying to use some of these classic details again, you know, but the button and tape particularly. Yeah, the button and tape. Yeah, it's not here. Yeah, it's an old 1984 jacket actually. Yeah, it's probably in here actually. It's probably in. It should be in here. Okay. Yeah.
이제 뭐 브랜드 워낙 좋아하시는 분들이 다 오셨을 것 같아요. 제가 간략하게 말씀드리면 제일 아이코닉한 제품이긴 하거든요. 에버레스트 파카라는 제품이 가격도 꽤 많이 높고 근데 이게 이제 매년 계속 재생산되고 오고 있는데 2003년부터 해서 지금 거의 20년이 넘은 거죠. 근데 이번 시즌에 특히 약간의 그 버튼 테이프에 대한 디테일들이나 이런 것들을 1984년도에 다른 모델에서 이렇게 차용해서 했다고 하니까 지금 제가 이번 시즌 건 저도 자세히 못 봐서 모르겠는데 끝나고 한번 저희 모든 매장에도 있을 거니까 한번 눈여겨서 봐주시면 좋을 것 같아요. 그 다음에 이 인터뷰 질문지가 조금 긴데 이제 처음에 아까 계속 반복해서 얘기하셨는데 67년도부터 빈티지를 접한 이후에 첫 빈티지의 어떤 인상이 어땠고 어떤 부분에서 매력을 느꼈는지 그리고 그때 처음 느꼈을 때부터 지금까지 인식이 어떻게 달라졌다고 생각하시는지 되게 좀 철학적인 질문인 것 같은데 한번 여쭤보도록 하겠습니다. So you repeated that you started from like 67.
67
And then
years.
what was your first vintage piece and what caught your attention and how?
Okay, well, this is you know, you've got to understand that when you're 17 in 1967 and you're going to fashion college for the first time, because I went to fashion college, I went to university in 1967, I went to fashion college, which was basically all girls, there was no guys, it was a college. I mean, doing fashion in the 60s was more about women's wear and children's wear than men's wear. So I was definitely a pioneer in the 60s. At Newcastle Fashion College was to ask them to do menswear because they wanted me to do women's wear or children's wear, and I was never really that interested in women's wear. I wanted to be a men's designer. So in the 60s, that's what I did. I sort of fought hard as a young man to do menswear, and I managed to be able to do it for the first time in 1967. And of course, it was hard in 1960s to, at 17, to find, you know, a purpose and a way to design and to be different. And so I wasn't fortunate enough to find the vintage at this stage. But what I did find was pop music. And of course, the 1960s, from 1967, the flower power and the actual pop music of the 1967-68 was sensational. Had the best American music coming out of the late 60s. We had all the mod scene and in England, and we had all the hippies and the flower power and everything else. So I was really brought into life, really, born in 49 and then being 17, 18 in 67, 68, which was an amazing time for flower power and for hitchhiking. I used to travel all around Europe hitchhiking. You know, I had no money, so I had to hitchhike from a lift. You know, I do 2,000 miles in a week, you know, going to Spain from England. And I met many cultures, and I really got to love foreign people straight away as a young man. And I spent a lot of time going to places like Spain and Italy, hitchhiking, and France, and meeting young people like you guys, you know, when I was a young person. And this is incredible and incredibly inspiring, and you know, it's really interesting. So I love foreign people, you know, that's always given me a big buzz.
이제 뒤에 질문이 약간 생략이 돼서 아마 그 답변을 좀 듣기로 하고 앞에 거에 대한 어디에서 이제 왜 이렇게 처음에 빈티지를 좋아하게 되셨는지에 대한 게 이제 그때 뉴캐슬 패션 콜리지에 처음에 들어가셨을 때 거의 다 여성복 아니면 아동복만 하고 계셨고 거의 다 여성분들이었고 그래서 남자로서는 되게 이제 파이오니어라는 표현을 하셨는데 그런 거 처음 하시는 이런 역할을 하고 계셔서 새로운 걸 영감을 받을 수가 없으니까 사실은 디자이너를 그때 당시에 많이 없어서 그래서 60에서 68년도까지가 이제 미국에서 그 팝이 되게 센세이셔널했던 시기라 그쪽을 많이 보면서 영감을 얻으셨고 그 뒤로도 이제 여행 많이 하시면서 히치하이킹 해가지고 영국에서부터 스페인까지 프랑스까지 이탈리아까지 돌아다니면서 많은 그런 젊은 친구들을 만나고 그런 데에서도 많이 영감을 받으신 것 같습니다. 좀 뭐 시간 이런 게 있어가지고 더 질문할 게 많은데 딱 두 가지만 더 여쭤볼게요. 이제 이거는 디자인하시는 분들이 재미있어 하실 수도 있을 것 같은 건데 옷을 디자인하실 때 기능성하고 미적 요소 중에 어떤 게 더 중요하게 보시는지 그걸 여쭤보겠습니다. So now we only have two questions to go.
Okay, that's
So
good.
the one is when you are designing, how do you balance between functionality with aesthetics or beauty, let's say?
Well, you know, it's sort of easy for me because I'm finding the vintage pieces. So what the vintage pieces do for me, they give me a period in history. You know, so obviously I love U.S. Army. I love you know, I love the RAF British. Yeah, so obviously that gives me an idea of the period, and obviously I love all the clothes from the 1930s, 1940s, 50s and 60s. So I concentrate on things from the 60s to maybe into the 80s, but I'm more interested in stuff from World War II period and then coming into the 50s. I look at World War One as well for details. Very interested in American lifestyle as well. I'm very interested in Japanese lifestyle. I mean, there's details I'm taking from Japanese clothing as well. You know, I found an amazing World War II Japanese flight jacket made in pure silk, and I've used that garment a lot. So a lot of the really expensive, very rare pieces give me, big inspiration. I can design a whole collection around a few pieces because it gives me such a period in time.
정확히 뭐 어떤 게 기능성이 중요하다, 미적 요소가 중요하다라는 얘기보다는 어디에서 이런 인스피레이션을 받아보시는지에 대한 얘기를 더 많이 하신 것 같은데, 이제 미국군 당연히 좋아하시고 그다음에 영국 RAF라고 얘기하신 영국군도 되게 좋아하시는데, 이제 뭐 30년대부터 한 60년대까지, 그러니까 2차 세계대전 전후, 1차 세계대전 쪽도 좋아하시지만 좀 더 2차 대전 쪽을 좀 더 많이 본다고 하시고, 뭐 60년대에서 80년대 것도 있지만 메인으로 많이 보시는 거는 그쪽, 그리고 특히 이제 일본의 이런 플라이트 자켓이라고 하죠. 그런 것들에서도 많이 이렇게 영감을 받아오시는데, 되게 많은 것보다는 아까 얘기하신 걸로 들어봤을 때는 한 2개, 3개의 되게 메인이 되는 아이템들에서 요소에서 영감을 받아서 이렇게 디자인을 하시는 것 같습니다. 그리고 마지막 질문은 자신만의 브랜드를 계획하는 신인 디자이너가 있다, 어떤 조언을 해주시고 싶으신지 여쭤보겠습니다. So the last is, what advice would you give young designers when they plan to start their own brand?
Well, first of all, you need a good education, really. You need to go to fashion college. I went to fashion college, so I really was interested in designing when I was about 14 or 15. I went to do a 4-year degree in fashion. So doing a course in fashion, I think, is quite important if you want to be a fashion designer. The most important thing to me, though, is two things. Is the fabric and the vintage garments. So I think that to be original, and if you want to be original, let's say somebody like Mahara Yasuhiro, for instance, who is a good friend of mine, and I wear his sneakers, his shoes. You need to have a good education. You need to go to college. I would advise you do vintage shop because you find unique ideas, and you need to work fucking hard. You need to work hard all the time. It doesn't come easy. I've worked solid for over 50 years and I love what I'm doing. You need to find a passion. The most important thing is find a passion. If you can find a passion, then you've got a chance of making success of it. For me, it would be impossible to make a success without it being something that I really love doing and have a real passion to do. And that's how I made a success out of my brand. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. So if you're good at kicking a ball against the wall, then be a fucking footballer, But this is my advice: you do what you love, And I want to be an accountant or a solicitor or whatever. I just love the clothes and I love the business and I love traveling. And you learn so much from travel. Travel's so important. It's so important. Okay.
처음에 시작은 에듀케이션으로 하셨는데 마지막에 열정과 여행, 중간에 좀 재밌는 얘기를 해주신 것 같은데, 예를 들어서 되게 많은 분들이 아실 거예요. 미아라 야스히로 이런 신발의 탄생이라든지, 이제 개인적으로 친분도 있으시니까 가능한 거기도 했는데, 언급하신 게 하나는 패브릭 그리고 하나는 빈티지. 그래서 이 두 개에서 많이 좀 이렇게 뭔가成장 요소를 참고를 하시는 것 같아요. 그래서 뭐 여행 많이 하고 열정을 가지고 사랑하고 열심히 해라. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Would you guys like to ask me any questions? I think it'd be good. If anybody wanted to know anything or ask me any questions, I think it would be good. if you guys, anybody wants to ask me anything about the business or anything you want, really
질문
happy
있으신
to
분
try and
있으면
answer.
개인적으로 받으시고 싶으시다고 제일 빨리 들으셔서
Well, I was actually born in Scunthorpe in Lincolnshire, and it's a very small team. So, you know, they're basically in the old 4th division. So they've never been a Premiership team. So it's just called Scunthorpe United, and I've always supported the place where I was born. So I don't, you know, I mean, obviously I love Manchester United.
Wow.
Yeah, but I think that if you're a real true supporter, football supporter, you actually, where the place you lived and where you were brought up, is that your team?
How is that Manchester?
Is it really? Well, it doesn't work for me because you need to have your heart in where you live. So, and I don't think China have such a bad football team. I mean, you're playing better and better. I keep my eye on China as a national football team, so keep improving. Are you following the national China team? Oh. So, but Korea has a wonderful team as well. I mean, Korea is a really good team.
My brother used to be in China.
Really? Oh my God. Korea is a great team. Yeah, yeah.
혹시 뭐또 있으신 분?
한국어로 말씀.
네네 괜찮습니다. 영어 잘하시면 모르시죠?
So now I'm just working in a fashion archive. That name is Coda. So I have just one question: is how do you think about the value of a process that not about the result?
Can you just can you say that again?
그 결국 과정의 결과의 형태보다 과정에 대한 생각은 어떠하신지 한번 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
어느 게 중요한 건지에 대한
아니,
거였어요.
그 과정에 대한 생각은 어떻게 하고 계신지. 그러니까 옷에 대한 과정일 수도 있고요, 발전 과정일 수도 있고요.
So it could be about the garments itself, or could be about it's a little bit complicated question, but what would you say about if we have to mention about like the process of the making and the result of the making? But he is asking you more about the process. What's your perception or idea about the process of making garments?
Well, the process of making garments. Well, first of all, you have to have the right fabric. You have to have the right factory. You know, if you've got a good idea and you've got a good factory, and you know the type of fabric you want, but you need a very good pattern cutter because it's very difficult to get what you want without the great pattern cutter. So you need 3 elements really. You need the fabric, you need the pattern cutter, you need to be able to make it beautifully. If you can't do that, it's really difficult to get what you want.
세 가지 요소가 있습니다. 지금 이게 여쭤보신 거에 대한 대답인지는 제가 잘 모르겠어서. 혹시 또 없으시면, 네, 죄송합니다.
제가 영어로는 바로
네, 이렇게 하셨습니다.
팬츠 같은 경우에는 주로 이제 나오는 게 주로 영국권 관련 팬츠가 제일 많이 나오긴 하는데 핸드폰 말고도 예전 제품도 보면 벨기에군이 있고 그런데 독일군이나 프랑스 이런 제품 나오는 가능성이 있는지.
So it seems he really loves the brand.
Yeah.
So he mentioned that most of the trousers that you build
Yes.
mainly from UK
Yes.
Army, British Army, and he says maybe a little bit from US, but or sometimes like Belgium.
Yes.
He's asking if you're gonna like think about anything from like Germany or
Well,
some other.
to be honest, obviously the British Army is my favourite. I mean, my father was in the British Army in World War II. He was actually in Burma. You know, he was actually fighting the Japanese. Can you believe? He didn't tell me too much about the Japanese. I used to ask him about the Japanese because he died in 1980. So he was in Burma for the whole of the war. So I questioned this one. Yeah. Just repeat it again. Just
So
tell.
if you have any special plan to build something from like German archives
Yeah.
or the other French.
I mean, to be very honest with you, because I collect the vintage, it's mainly military and RAF, Air Force, naval pieces, and of course I'm already taking all of that all the time, and that's given me the inspiration to do wonderful new things, you know. So if I had to design without collecting the vintage, it would be very difficult. Yeah.
가지고 여태까지 모으신 게 거의 대부분 그런 걸 기반으로 하니까 RF라고 하시는, 그리고 아까 네이비 실드 얘기하셨고, 그래서 거기에서부터 인스피레이션을 따와서 디자인을 하니 그게 제품으로 그렇게 보여진 것 같고, 안 가지고 있는 건 내가 좀 만들기가 어렵지 않겠느냐. 그래서 앞으로도 아마 그런 식으로 많이 브랜드 전개되지 않을까 싶어요.
일단 나젤 카본님이 이미지로 보는 것보다 훨씬 연세가 많으셨고, 근데도 되게 정정하시면서 파워 있으시고 일에 또 열정도 있으시고, 그리고 되게 친절하시더라고. 원래 인터뷰 시간 40분이었는데 그 이후로 거의 2시간 가까이 사진 찍어주시고 사인도 다 해주시고 얘기 다 들어주시고, 그 아메리칸 캐주얼이랑 아메카지 좋아하는 사람들은 또 모를 수 없는 나이젤 카본님 실무 영접하고 왔는데 너무 영광이었습니다. 이런 행사 열어주신 모드맨 그리고 관계자분들께 감사 인사드립니다. 이 기회를 주신 지터버거님에게도 감사 인사를 드립니다. 여기서 또 사인도 받았죠. 나이젤 카본 이 출판 기념 행사였는데 책에 관련된 굿즈 메신저 백이고, 사인까지 받아왔습니다. 본인을 형상화한 사인. 이거는 집안 대대로 가보로 간직할 계획이고, 아무튼 너무 즐거웠습니다. 감사합니다.
It's just Nigel Caborn here, and I'm here today in Korea, in Seoul, and I'm meeting a lovely young gentleman called GW, wishing him luck with his new venture and business. You must check out Vink.